Hello and welcome. This is Aya's own podcast, episode number 5. And we're not actually going to begin this one as we have the other ones, which is with a practice. I'm not big on consistency. And we're actually going to go through practices the whole time, so I guess that counts. And today's about Tantra. So this is the third one on Tantra. This is like my Tantra season because I'm writing a book on Tantra, particularly paying attention to the Vigyan Vada of Tantra and the 112 techniques given to realize our true nature and move past the conditioned mind and back into the mind that is open and free, the unconditioned mind of our true nature. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite techniques. And that's what the book I'm writing is all about. There's 112 of these techniques, and I'm going to share with you 10 in the book. And I'm just going to go through as many as I can in the next half an hour here for you. What I want to explain is why these are important. So, Tantra is about realizing our true nature. Our true nature, it's hard to describe because it can't be put in words. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the great Tao. The true nature is not your acquired mind. It's not your personality. It's not the stuff you wear. It's not the layers of ego identification. It's not your subconscious programming. It's not your fears, your phobias. It's not your likes or dislikes. It's not anything in the past. It's not anything that is limited. So much of our present moment experience and what we pay attention to is not all of our true nature. It's just a slice of it. So there's a recognition of this is a part of the beautiful puzzle of life, but it's not the whole centerpiece. So there's an invitation to take a wider perspective about our larger picture of who we are and tapping more into the essential energy that came before us that we are tied to, that all of creation is tied to. So what this does is it allows us to move beyond the conditioning of the program patterns in the subconscious, which are filtering into the conscious mind, which are dictating our perceptions, our program likes and dislikes that we received implicitly without verbal contraction or contract here, without really recognizing what we were receiving. We've taken on a lot of these beliefs through the culture, through our society, and now it's up to us to free ourselves, to free our mind, to see what we want, to rid ourselves of the conditioning, the limitation that's in the mind, and tap back into the essence of reality. Because reality here in this moment is radiantly coming in with unconditional love and source energy from all directions. And now the only way we can fully receive that is if we're properly open to it. Many people aren't open to it because what's happening in your nervous system is energy is coming in, and then it's coming through your sense organs, and through the process of processing that information, organizing its data into perception, all of our conditioning is being infiltrated into that perception, and that's what we receive at the level of the conscious mind. So rather than experiencing reality as it is, there's this filtration system of past experiences. So rather than seeing a flower and seeing it for its radiant beauty, we compare it with other flowers, we compare it with flowers that we've seen before, and we don't see it as if for the first time. That's what the conditioned and acquired mind is all about. It's in time, and it's important, but our true nature, and a glimpse of your true nature, is to see that flower as if for the first time, as if never seeing another flower. So, these techniques are tools to get at our true nature, to clear the conditioned mind, enter into a meditation technique, to see life as it is. When practiced regularly, or a great awakening is received, or realized, or attained, then we can fully embody our true nature in our everyday experience at any moment. We first get glimpses through these techniques, and then it can infiltrate our eternal awareness. Because our true nature is eternal, limitless, and it's what's behind everything at any moment. So despite this stage and all the masks we wear, there's something eternally present. This is your Buddha nature. This is your true nature. This is the silence behind all sounds. This is what Tantra is getting at. My book, I haven't fully titled, but it's looking at the title of The Heart and Breath of Tantra. And I've chosen that because at the heart is Tantra. And we need to have heart and love to actually do these techniques. That's so key. Because if you go into Tantra and you're not in your heart, you're going to get distracted with all the other Tantra stuff, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. That's not going to allow you to maintain your true nature if you get caught in all the other stuff. So the heart of Tantra is key. And I chose the word heart because it also has the word art. And that's so key with the Tantric teachings. It's a reclamation of life as art, as beautifully splendid, and reclaiming the beauty of life. So the heart and love, and then art and beauty are two central keys towards the Tantric embodiment. And the third is the breath. The breath is our, let's say, our vehicle into present moment experience. And every time that you choose to consciously breathe, you are gathering more of your energy, which may be often, who knows what land, and you're gathering it into this moment. So more of your mind and your body and your spirit can be integrated. 'Tis the nature of the breath, which is another word for spirit. So the more that we can practice these techniques with love, with a sense of art and play, and with good full body cellular breathing, we can come into our full embodiment. And that's the true teaching of Tantra. It's not a philosophy at its heart. It's an embodied experience. So, enough words. Let's get to some techniques. First technique. There's two different techniques on devotion. The first technique I'm going to share with you is simply to witness your breathing with devotion. Take a moment to tune into that. Notice your shifts. Notice the shift in the body, physical sensation. Notice the shift in the emotion and in the mind. Now, of course, I just did this technique for 10 seconds with you. There's a much more pronounced ways to do this. But maybe you tuned into a shift in you. I can't speak to what your shift is because that's unique to you. For me, when I tune into a sense of devotion, I invite more love and reverence and the sense of sacred into my body. Everything is sacred, but I'm not always attuned to that reality. When I attune to devotion in my breathing, I know it's encoding my breath and my mind, my emotions and my body, and instantly a level of reverence comes over me. And what this is revealing to me is that my conditioned state, the default mode that I'm walking around with, isn't a devoted state all the time. Because when I tune into the devotional state, I'm like, that's not what I'm walking around with. So there's a piece on self-awareness that can come up. And then it's a switch. As I mentioned, there's a default mode of how we're perceiving due to our conditioned mind. And there's an opportunity to shift the neurochemistry, the different wirings of the brain, and be like, I'm going to invite in more devotion. When you practice that technique regularly, it's beautiful because you'll start to become devoted to things you never thought you could be devoted for. There's a meditation where you become devoted to an object and you just love the fuck out of it. I have a plant over there and I just I love and appreciate it, and I know you're not a real plant, but I'm gonna fucking be devoted to you. And it's like, we can just build this relationship, and then I'll probably never look at that plant the same way again because now I've built a genuine connection with it. Hey, bud. So this is a powerful practice. And when we look in with the breath, what I love about Tantric teachings are they're not dogmatic, they're techniques, there's a science to them. I'm going to tap into some of this in this video. There's much more. But they're non-denominational, I believe that's the right word. They don't have a sense of, this is a God, and this is the one you worship. This is a sense of, hey, when people worship, there's something there. Because we worship around the world. We all worship different gods. We all worship different things. Some of them aren't gods. And that sense of worship and devotion is a state that people really thrive in. It's really good for the system. They really want to be in that state. So let's take away the external God and tap into what's happening internally and prime our state with that. And we can just simply do that with our breathing. And then there's an availability to also do it with objects. But as I said, with the plant, it's like, yes, we can become devoted to the plant, or we can become devoted to Shiva or Jehovah or whatever we want to put on the highest pedestal there. So there's a beautiful invitation to look at the essential nature of what's happening in religious systems. And this is all part of the teachings that come along with Tantra. As we practice, we see the world in a much different way, and we begin to understand it. Because we've got more understanding of ourselves and other people. Okay, we've got lots of techniques, so I don't want to spend too much time there. So let's do a next one. As if you were to look at an object, and maybe there's one in the room, don't use the cell phone because it's too distracting. Look at the object, look at its borders, and then begin to see no borders, as if it's a painting, and everything's like merged as one. If you've done acid or mushrooms, this happens quite naturally. But this is a shift that we can perceptually make in our unadulterated, sober mind. And that's where the real magic comes in, when we learn to shift our awareness without anything. And I'm completely not against all those things. But I'm just giving another technique where we can also access those states. So what we did there is we went through seeing, perceiving an object with its borders, how it's differentiated from other objects, and then giving a sense of merging it. Now these are different parts of your brain that do that. So one is responsible for taking an object and looking at its composite colors and components and seeing it as separate, what makes it separate. And there's another part of our brain that we can use to unify our perception and see everything as one. Now, it's not just an external perception when we begin to do this, because what's going to happen is there's going to be an internal rebound of what we're doing in our mind and body, and it's more of a holistic way of seeing the world. So, depending on what your job is, and once again, your conditioning, if you're in a job that's constantly asking for you to see objects and their differences, that's going to have an effect on the conditioned way you perceive the world. Whereas if you're in a position where you work with nature, which is much more like that pastel painting like vista all the time, you're much more likely to see in a holistic way. The key with Tantra is it's a technique. We have the external environment, which can be a wonderful trigger, but if we can get at the essential conditioning through a technique, we can rewire ourselves and become more aware of, say, our job, which is causing our mind and brain to be conditioned one way, and seeing if that is serving us. Beautiful. What's the next one? Intone a sound audibly, and then go quieter and quieter. So let's go ah. Make it audibly. Ah. Silence after the sound. It's always a beautiful silence after making a sound. So if your mind's ever really busy, make a long sound, and then be quiet. It's a beautiful technique. Now another level, a little bit more quiet, like a whisper. Silence. One more layer. Just make the sound in your head while exhaling. Beautiful. This is a really powerful technique that's used in the medical and shamanic qigong. They use very frequently for sound healing. There are different levels of energy that we embody. The audible sound affects most our physical tissues, so we use this for organ healing. So we invite specific sounds into them, vibrating the physical tissues. The second sound is a little bit more subtle, and you'll notice your awareness dropping deeper within you. So it's a tool for turning within. And you'll tap more into your emotional body at that second level. And then the third is just in the mind, and you're going at the most subtle vibration, which is more the mental level. And you'll tap more into the belief structures that are held. And if we do this in organ healing, we tap into one, the physical organ, the emotions stored within the organ, and then the belief structure is also stored within the organ. So that's a very valuable and beautiful technique. If you want information on sound healing, I offer that, as well as videos to teach you how to do that on your own. Next technique. At the start of union, keep attention to the fire so you don't get the embers at the end. I made a short form, they're talking about sexual union. So this is a Tantra sex technique. This is paying particular attention to the fire in the beginning and cultivating that energy. And this is meditation, and it involves concentration, and it involves offering oneself to the fires of love. So it's not easy, because the conditioned mind from thousands and thousands of years of evolutionary history, which are stored in your DNA, is not to make love a beautiful and conscious ceremony. You see how all the other animals do it? It's not a beautiful and conscious ceremony. Most of them don't even look like they're enjoying it. Some do, but that's a whole other story. So, humans have often gotten into the routine of having a very conditioned way of having sex, which is through the implicit learning from porn. And I grew up in a Christian school. Like, the education was, it was not helpful. So we need to get past all of that. And of course, many people are quite familiar with Tantra as a pathway towards a greater intimacy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. What can we do to attend to that fire in the beginning? We have to be very conscious of what that feeling is in our body. And this is where meditation and concentration are key. The more that you know how to meditate, this is what you learn. When you have a feeling, you learn to hold on to that feeling. Not as an attachment, but to expand it and feel it in your whole being. This happens naturally sometimes. Maybe when your spouse proposed to you, you felt the emotion on your whole body. Now we're capable of feeling all of our emotions in our whole body all the time. It's only conditioning and armoring and a whole ton of other shit that we carry that we don't. So the practice, say, of metta, is to practice love and kindness, feel love, feel gratitude, and then blow that sensation up into your whole being as love and gratitude. And learn to hold on to that vibration of love and gratitude as it's in your energy. And what one does in the meditation concentration, when you live a meditative life, is to cultivate enough of the energy of love and appreciation that you live in that state. And that everything else is, we're in a state of like self-hypnotized realization in many ways in meditation. And these techniques can help you to do that, because that's what self-realization is. You want to be completely self-embodied in your own light from within, and not from all the conditioning and hypnotization of all the garbage that's out there that isn't nurturing to your soul's development, to your true nature, to what's really true in life and what's really most honoring for you, and simultaneously will be honoring for everything and everyone on this planet. So in meditation, we learn to hold on to that feeling. Now the sexual union is the beautiful stage where we can go deepest into that, where we can learn to feel that emotion, hold on to it, and there's ways to cultivate it, because you can't just simply hold it like it's not something you can grab. In order to tend those beginning flames, there's a cadence and a way to make love, to be able to circle back, which doesn't get into the conditioned ways of moving and breathing that are going to lead you towards that climax and then end. And that's why Tantric love is all about, they call it the valley orgasm. It's more like a valley instead of a peak. And the ceremony doesn't have a beginning and an end. So typically a tantric sex ceremony is multiple hours long, and it has a pattern that's quite spontaneous. Massage, make love, stop, maybe meditate, and then massage again, then make some more love, and then talk about intimacy. And it's all, you see how that's moving around so it doesn't pick a program pattern? And it's like, can you live with those embers of like desire? Because you're never hitting that desire point like most people do, and they get this release, and then for men, they release all their energy and they're depleted after. Can you keep in the desire? Can you hold the desire for your partner? Because that's going to build so much energy in both of your systems. That's a real beautiful state to receive. And so there's a number of different techniques. I believe there's more than 6 techniques on the breathing. So I just like to tap into that because, as you know, I'm a breath worker, and this is one of my main focuses in life. That, like the first 6 techniques are all just watch your breathing and watch the turning point where inhale meets exhale and exhale meets inhale. Let's do that for a moment. Quite simply watching it. Amazing. That technique there is the basis of Vipassana. It's the basis of Zazen, the Zen way of meditating. It's found all over the world. The Buddha taught it. It has made more people realize their true nature than any other technique because it taps into your true nature, which is simply your nature, present moment experience, without needing to attain or acquire anything, without needing yoga postures, without needing anything else. Your true nature is you, always. There's something essential behind everything. And the only way that most people can get a glimmer of that is to just shut the fuck up. Stop doing absolutely everything that the conditioned mind and the energies of the past have brought you towards. Stop and just watch your breathing. Now, anyone can get a glimpse of their true nature by watching that technique. Simply watch the breathing. What happens for most people is as soon as they watch the breathing, what happens? Thinking and emotion, and the mind says, I need to do this and I need to do that. Yes. The point is not to reach a state. This isn't a goal-oriented practice. The point is to be present. What is being revealed is your conditioning, your acquired mind, what's going through your mental and emotional and physical processing at the moment. And all that is part of your true nature. So just the experience of attending to it is the whole goal. You don't need to reach a state where you become absolutely quiet. Though those states come, those beautiful samadhi states, they are not to be chased after, because as soon as you chase after that state, you've lost that because you're trying to grasp at something that's not present. So this technique of simply observing the breath, simply coming back to the breathing over and over and over again is one of the most foundational tantric techniques. Foundational to reconditioning the mind. Foundational to keeping your mind out of loops. Just become present with what those loops are, and then you'll see that your mind naturally settles. It just wants to be heard, it just wants to be recognized. Spending some time simply to watch the breathing can be done anywhere at any time, as most of these techniques can. Watch your breath with devotion is different than just watching your breathing. So there's many little fine tweaks. That's the key with these techniques. Probably should have said this in the beginning. There's 112. You only need one. You only need one to realize your true nature. You see your true nature, and you allow the technique to recondition you until you embody your true nature in your experience of everyday life. Now, there's certain people who are going to be attracted to certain techniques. So simply watching the breath without anything else is going to be really resonant with some people, but some people are more heart-centered. Some people are more into devotion. Some people want that devotional aspect, and to watch the breath with devotion is going to be much more resonant for them. So choose that technique. So I'm offering you a number of techniques with some explanation, hopefully offering you some glimmer at the science behind these techniques, because they're very scientific in the inner scientific realms, of course. There's no objective ways to get at your true nature, because it's objectivity that kind of needs to be dropped on some level, if it's the programmed objectivity of most of the science that's going around nowadays, which has a limitation because it's not always equally congruent with internal truth. So internal sciences are different than external sciences. What we observe in the external world is different than what we observe in the internal world in these kind of nuanced ways. I'm not going to get into all that here. That's going to be divergent of this. Let me get back on track. These techniques, you only need one, but it's good to try a few. It's good to try a few for a consistent period of 10, 21 days or so, and then give it an opportunity to rewire your conditioning as you see the world. Take them out into the world. These are techniques for everyday awareness and living, because it doesn't need a complex system of postures, prayers. You don't need to go into all those spiritual practices, which are beautiful, which are in many ways written about in these 112 techniques in various forms of one another. This just gets at the root. So find the ones that are most resonant with you. In my book, I talk about 10 of my favorites, and they're not just my favorites because they're really powerful. They're my favorites because there's a wide variety of techniques. Some are about the breath, some are about the mind, some are about the heart, and there's different entry points. Some are about sex, and I wanted to give a sampler of a bunch of the different techniques, so that you have a little bit more of a doorway into what's all available in this tantric embodiment. And that's a completion of this video. So we went over a few tantric techniques as a doorway into your true nature. Your true nature is not the conditioned self. Your true nature is the undying, your unborn self. It is source energy. There's so many names, and yet they do not describe it. It's an experience which every person has a connection to in their own unique way. Tantra is about discovering your embodiment of that connection and seeing it flourish in your life, bring you into radiant splendor. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day.